Hello, hello. This is Professor Critroll bringing you a video about how to make a Pathfinder 2nd edition character, especially as a new player coming into the system for the first time. I have a written guide that I'm going to show you here in a second, and this video will kind of go along with that. I'm going to go through the guide as quickly and concisely as possible, and then at the end of the video I will actually show you how to make a character using the guide also as quickly as possible. So let's jump into it. So the purpose of this guide, there are amazing character creation rules here. We can see them from Player Core. They're on Archives of Nethys, but they're a bit lengthy, and I know this is intimidating to some people. So I wanted to make it just kind of a quicker, more concise version of this. I'm going to skip over a lot of rules, so it would still be a good idea once you start getting used to the system to go through and read these to get a better understanding of the why behind everything. But this video is mostly for people who want to kind of hit the ground running in their first Pathfinder campaign. Maybe you have a session coming up next week and it's your first time and you just want to build a character that's going to be effective and useful to the party. So that's what this is for. So let's go ahead and jump in. First thing you're going to want to do is look up Pathbuilder 2nd Edition. If you have my guide open, you can click this link here, and it will take you straight to the Pathbuilder web app. There are two versions of this. There's the Android version you can get on Android phones from the Play Store, and then there's this web app. So they do sync if you log in and save your characters with Google Drive. So for example, if I hit load character, click Google Drive, it'll log in automatically if you have it set to that, and then all of the characters I've made are here. I may or may not have over 100 characters. I don't have a problem. But anyway, we're going to create a new character today, so we're going to click this button. It's going to present you with some options. You're probably going to be wanting to use the remastered rules unless you're playing at a table where they haven't converted, but most tables will have converted by now. So use remaster rules, and then up to your GM if you should allow old CRB and APG. Most of the time you'll want to have this on. The old options are still legal. They're just, a lot of them have been replaced or renamed in the remaster, but having this on isn't a bad thing. So it's up to you though. If you want it to be cleaner and easier, go ahead and keep that off. I'll keep it off for today's video. BattleZoo is a third-party publisher. They have really good stuff, but there's definitely no need for them. So you definitely don't need to enable that. And then allowing adventure paths, it's probably a better idea to have this off unless you know there's a background feat or something from an adventure path, in which case that you're going to take, and then you can keep that on. Let's keep it on for now. They're generally pretty good about not including campaign spoilers. So when you get to this page, this is what Pathbuilder looks like. You can name your character up here, but we will do that later. You can change your character's level, etc. But the main thing you need from Pathbuilder is the left column here. This whole left column from top to bottom gives you the step-by-step in order of everything you need to decide on to build your first character. I'm going to go through my guide, and then we'll bounce back and forth between the guide and this character that we're going to make. First thing, though, to understand is rarity tags. These are going to show up a lot in character creation. There are 4 of them. There's common, uncommon, rare, and unique. And they have colors that correspond to the colors here. There's kind of a rule of thumb to follow, and you'll want to ask your game master what the rules at their table are. But the general rule that most people in the community use is that anything that's common is fair game. You don't have to ask about it. It's good to go. Anything that's uncommon is usually going to be fine, but you should always run it by the GM and ask to make sure it's okay if you take that option. And then rare feats or abilities are going to be usually things that kind of introduce unique mechanics. Some of them are more convoluted. Some of them are just thematically, they might not fit into a campaign setting or every campaign setting. So they're marked with a rare tag. And with those, you always want to ask your GM, say, hey, I'm interested in taking this. A lot of the times, rare feats are just going to be a no. And, just expect that. But if you want to tell them, what's your reasoning for taking this rare feat or rare background or whatever, and you can a lot of GMs will work with you to incorporate that into the character. And then you're not going to see anything with the unique tag during character creation. Those are going to be like named items and things you'll find in a campaign. And then there's one common confusion that's caused with this is that some spells have the uncommon tag, and those are going to be spells that are unlocked through a class feature. Even though they have the uncommon tag, you do not need to ask your GM for permission to use them because you got them from a common feat. So, for example, if I'm playing a cleric who has a deity with the darkness domain, I can take this feat at level 2 called Domain Initiate, and what this feat allows me to do, looks like my internet's being a little slow tonight, but what this feat allows me to do is pick up a spell, this Cloak of Shadow spell. And this Cloak of Shadow spell, you can see this orange uncommon tag on it. This is the only exception to that rule. You don't have to ask your GM because this is a special spell called a focus spell that we got through this Domain Initiate feat, which is not uncommon. So that's the only exception. Otherwise, though, ask your GMs about uncommon tag abilities. All right, now jumping into the ABCs of character creation. This stands for ancestry, background, and class. But when I'm using these, or when I'm building a character, I usually start with class because that's kind of your core identity. So your class is what defines your character's proficiencies with weapons, armor, spellcasting, defenses, and different skills that they're good at. Every class also comes with something called a key ability score, which is super important. So, for example, a rogue generally wants to have dexterity, although rogues in this system actually have different abilities depending on what ability score they focus on. So that might not be the best example. A better example, sorcerer wants charisma. Sorcerer's charisma is their spell casting ability, so you want to always have your charisma at the maximum possible value it can be at any level when you're playing a sorcerer, so that your spells hit the hardest. Okay, there is this amazing resource that a couple of Reddit users kind of made. I think the first one was by user Pathfinder Info, and then the Azel, sorry, made a sort of updated version of it that's a lot better. It is a very finely detailed image, so you got to zoom in a little to see, but the description on the left kind of tells you how this chart works, and then each class has symbols that show what their key ability score is and what different things they're good at. So let's zoom in here. If it wants to let me pan. Guess it doesn't. Oh. Well, they're categorized into 3 categories: no magic ability, which are usually called marshals; low magic, which are characters that have some access to like focus spells or a few spell slots per day, but they're not primarily magic users; and then you have your high magic abilities, which are your full spell casters. And the users who made this made a really cool breakdown of like how the red blocks are offense, the blue blocks are kind of defense. Can't see the others. But it's really cool when you zoom in. I think this link's bad. I'll have to update it. When you zoom in, you can see the description of what each character does. Because Pathfinder 2e has a lot of really cool classes that haven't really been defined in other tabletop RPGs before. So definitely check this out when you're trying to get inspiration for what your first character is going to be. So next up, after you choose your class, you're going to want to pick an ancestry. An ancestry is also called race in other systems, but ancestry kind of makes more sense because, you know, an elf and a human are different species. They're not different races of the same species. So ancestry, I like that term. It's a little more inclusive of a variety of peoples, which there certainly are in the Pathfinder universe. There are rarity tags for ancestries. So anything in the core ancestries are common, which are going to be your dwarfs, elves, gnomes, goblins, halflings, humans, leshies, which are like plant people, and orcs. After that, you have uncommon ancestry. So just like other things with the tag, you'll want to ask your GMs, hey, is it okay if I play this uncommon ancestry? A lot of ancestries are marked as uncommon because they're not, you know, common adventurers in most typical fantasy regions or in the world of Galarian of the Pathfinder universe. But there are specific sections where there might be more of this population, like in Tianxia, the sort of East Asia themed continent. Tengus are going to be a lot more common. So even though they have the uncommon tag, if you were playing a campaign in that continent, they might gain the common tag instead of the uncommon tag. But don't worry too much about that. Just ask your GM about races based on if they're uncommon or rare. A lot of the rare races or ancestries are very interesting. There's androids. We have like Konrases, which are like these totem people, flesh warps, which are crazy mutated people. So a lot of interesting options. You can be a dog, Shunies. But anyway, so the nice thing about ancestries in Pathfinder 2 is that there's not really any wrong choices. You don't have to min-max your ancestry at all. You can, and there's certain ancestries that are more inclined to do specific things, but there's not a wrong choice. You can pick whatever ancestry that amuses you and that you find interesting. So let's go ahead and jump in and start making a character. We're going to choose our class first. I'm going to keep things simple. We're going to go with a fighter. Fighters in Pathfinder 2 are like one of the best, if not the best, martial frontliner. They're tanky, they can wear heavy armor, they hit really hard. They have an inherent +2 bonus to their attacks, which makes them a lot more accurate and more likely to get critical hits than any other class besides Gunslinger, which also gets that +2 bonus. So we're going to make a fighter. Now, I'm going to make my fighter a heavy armor, sort of tanky. Heavy armor is going to give you higher armor class, so you can be a little bit tankier than other characters. So to wear heavy armor, we'll go into this later, we're going to need some strength. So when I build this character, I'm going to want to get ability scores. I'm going to max out my strength score, and then we'll fill in a few other things as well when we get to ability scores. But for now, we're going fighter. Ancestry. Let's pick. Let's say we are really interested in playing a Shuni. Our Shuni are the sort of bipedal dogs, upright standing dogs. So we're going to pick a Shuni. We're going to make a Shuni fighter. Now, we look at our Shuni, and the racial or the ancestral abilities give us these things. We get a boost to our dexterity, our charisma, and then free means you can assign one to whatever you want. You always want to make sure you have your key ability score as one of them, which could be the free option. So I'm going to make this a strength-based heavy armor fighter, so we're going to want to make this free boost strength. However, I notice, hey, my Shuni, he's small, he has a flaw to Constitution. That gives you a -1 to your Constitution score instead of a bonus or a boost. I don't like that, and what I want to do is instead of using the base ability scores of the Shuni, we can do something called the standard ability selection. So instead of this dexterity, charisma minus con, if I hit standard ability selection, it lets me just choose 2 free options. So you can always do that on any ancestry, or you can use the ancestry specific ability scores. But yeah, we're going to pick Shuni. We'll get into the ability scores later. Next up is backgrounds. Your background is sort of generally supposed to be kind of like a backstory tie-in, but it gives you mechanics to support that backstory. So for example, if I'm a bookkeeper, I guess one thing that's important to know is that with backgrounds, they're all going to give you 2 boosts to ability scores. They're going to give you 1 skill proficiency and 1 lore skill, which is like specialized knowledge checks, and then 1 skill feat. That's kind of the standard background and what it gives you. Most of them follow that formula. So you can see for the bookkeeper, we get 2 attribute boosts. Except one of them is always going to be what I call specified or specific or restricted. So one of the boosts has to be intelligence or wisdom. The second boost is a free one, so you can choose any score. You also get trained in one skill. This is a skill proficiency. You also get a lore skill, so the bookkeeper gets accounting lore, so anything related to accounting, which is pretty specific. All the lore skills are very specific, but that means that this character knows they are accounting. So if anything related to accounting ever came up, the player could say, hey, I have accounting lore, could I roll that here? And get it like a bonus or a lower difficulty class for that check. And then you get a skill feat. This one gives you the eye for numbers skill feat. I don't know what that does, but if you ever want to know what an ability does in Pathfinder, it's super easy. Just open a new tab, type PF2E, and I'm going to type the name of the feat, eye for numbers. Hit enter. It's always going to be this Archives of Nethys first link, and it'll tell you what this ability does. So that's what we can do there. Also in Pathbuilder, probably easier, in Pathbuilder, if you just hit accept and select this, if you scroll down to the bottom of the level 1, it'll show you free feat, eye for numbers, and you can click it and it'll pop up with what it does there. But I do like that look of the Archives of Nethys website. It's very easy to read. So for our background, we're a fighter. Maybe this guy's like a retired guard or something. Maybe deputy might work. Um, I generally look for ability scores that I want to be either my key ability score, which would be strength, or a secondary ability score, which would be one that I want to get to at least +2 when I'm level 1. Dexterity isn't bad, depending if I want to use a ranged weapon or not, but I also don't need dexterity for armor because I am using heavy armor, so I can ignore dexterity for the most part. In this case, I'm going to find one that gives me Constitution because I want that to be my second highest statistic. Wisdom wouldn't be bad either, so I really could do, I think Deputy had Wisdom. It does. I could do Wisdom for Deputy as because that'll be a +2 stat as well. So once you've selected your ancestry, your background, and your class, next up is your ability score. So we're going to click this button called Set Abilities, and that'll pull up this screen. Now let me explain ability scores here. So with ability scores, they do different things for your character. If you know about ability scores in like D&D 5e, it's the same here. Most of the stuff is the same. Strength is going to increase your melee accuracy and damage rolls. It's also going to make you better at athletics, which is going to be used for combat maneuvers, and also increase your carry capacity. Your dexterity increases your armor class, which is super important, so a lot of characters don't want to dump dex unless you're wearing heavy armor. It increases armor class, your reflex saving throws, skill checks for like stealth and thievery, and then any finesse weapons. I should actually change this. Finesse weapon accuracy and ranged accuracy. Those are two separate things. Finesse weapons are melee weapons where you can use dexterity to hit as accuracy, and then also any ranged weapons or thrown weapons get more accurate with dexterity. Constitution increases your hit points and your fort saves. Most characters want some constitution. You don't want to have a negative constitution or even a flat 0 because it's not that good. It'll make you pretty squishy. So dex and con are nice to have for defenses on most characters. Intelligence is going to increase the number of skills that you get trained proficiency in. So this I really like intelligence for this. If I have an extra point to throw around, I like to do intelligence for that extra skill proficiency. You also get extra languages known, and there's a lot of knowledge skills like arcana, occultism, and society that are really nice to have to roll for learning things about the world that you're in. Wisdom is a really powerful statistic in Pathfinder 2e because initiative got changed from dexterity to wisdom. A lot of systems I've noticed have been doing that recently, which is an interesting change, but makes it very powerful. So you have your perception skill checks, which is based off wisdom, sense motive when you're trying to intuit if someone's lying to you, your will saving throws, which are arguably one of the most might be the most important saving throw. Initiative, of course, is usually based on your perception, so same thing here. And then also your knowledge, a couple of knowledge skills, nature and religion, scale off of wisdom. So wisdom is an awesomely powerful stat. And then charisma is honestly really good too. It's obviously going to increase your social skills. And then there's also combat abilities that use charisma. You can demoralize to make people scared in combat, which reduces their stats, or you can feint them to make them off guard to your attacks, so you're more likely to hit. And those scale off charisma. Now, armor class is very important. I mentioned this before. There's some math here, but the premise is that you don't want to neglect your armor class. You either want to be wearing some heavier or medium armor with the strength score to support that, or you want to make sure your dexterity caps out your armor. So armors, let me go to this armor page. Armors have a couple of important statistics here. This is the list of all the armors. There's a lot of them to look through, but the main thing you're looking at is the category. You want light armor, medium armor, and heavy armor. Now, to find out what you're proficient in, if you go to your class and click on it, it'll tell you all of your proficiencies here. So fighters are proficient in simple weapons, martial weapons, trained in advanced weapons, but here it is, trained in all armor. So they can use any armor. So like I said, we're going to use some heavy armor with our character. So I'm going to scroll down and look at my heavy armor options. Now in this second category, or this column here, there's the AC column, and this is how much armor class your armor set is giving you. You also have a dexterity cap, which is what the highest dexterity bonus to AC you can get is based on your armor. So heavier armors, as we go down this list, have higher armor class rating, but lower dex mod. You'll notice that all of the heavy armors add up to 6. It's 5 plus 1 or 6 plus 0. And then all of the medium armors, or not all of them, but most of the medium armors, the ones that you want to wear, add up to 5. They don't go up to 6. So it's either 4 plus 1, 3 plus 2, 2 plus 3. And when you get into the light armors, you get 2 or 1 armor with a 3 or a 4 dexterity cap. So if I were like playing like a rogue or something with 0 strength, I'm going to pick leather armor because I'll probably have my dexterity maxed out. So I can get 1 armor from my leather and then 4 dexterity. On the right side, there's also this important column called strength requirement. This is the minimum strength score required to wear certain armors. So you can see as you go down this column here, you need higher strength to wear heavier armors. I can wear this split mail is a very good early game heavy armor if you have at least 1 dexterity, because you can get 5 armor plus 1 from dexterity, and it only requires 16 strength, although normally you'll have 18 strength when you are playing a heavy armor character. But that's the idea. That's armor in a nutshell. So you generally start at level 1 with 15 gold, unless your GM says otherwise. You can add gear by going to weapons and add weapon and search for the name of the weapon you want. Defense, you can add your armor here by clicking defense and then clicking change and finding your armor. So if I wanted split mail, I would select split mail and then I would hit buy, and it will actually subtract the gold out of your gear tab. Now heavy armor is expensive and you might not be able to afford heavy armor at level 1, but you'll usually have enough gold by level 2 to head to a shop and buy some heavy armor if you are a heavy armor user. But I'm going to leave this split mail here for now. You can see that affected our armor class. Our armor class is 19, which is very good. In general, this is kind of like a little maximum AC you're going to see at level 1, barring some like shenanigans. I put a link here to some like builds that people have made. It's like this whole chart with different ACs at different levels depending on what you've built for your character. But in general, heavy armor users and monks, dexterity monks specifically, are going to have the highest AC at level 1 at 19. A typical light armor or medium armor user that maxes out their dexterity cap for their armor is going to have 18 AC at level 1. And then there's honestly not really any characters who are going to be unarmored at 4 dex that I can think of. Like a rogue is going to have 4 dex, but they're going to be armored with light armor probably. But if that were a case, you'd be at 17. And then unarmored characters are usually going to be like your casters who don't have armor proficiency. So like a cleric of the cloth, or like a wizard or sorcerer or psychic. Some casters do have armor, so like druids get armor proficiency. Oracles, I think, get some armor proficiency, unless they got rid of that in the remaster. I can't remember. So a caster is generally going to have their key ability score is going to be like charisma, intelligence, or wisdom, one of the mental stats. So they're not going to be able to have a +4 in dexterity. So the highest they might have is a 3, or a lot of the times they might have a 2, in which case their AC is only going to be 16 or 15 compared to like a normal character's 18 or a heavy armor character's 19. So they're a lot squishier, a lot easier to kill. On top of that, they probably have less hit points from their class hit dice. Anyways, a couple things to note. Casters can help with that AC. They can bump it up by 1 by taking the Mystic Armor spell. It's a spell that gives a +1 AC bonus for the whole day. It costs you a spell slot, which early in the game you only have like 3 or 4 spell slots for most casters at level 1. Some have 2, so that's a big portion of your resources. So it might not be worth it, but +1 AC will definitely make you more survivable. So if you're worried about dying, it might be a good pickup, and you can rely on cantrips in the early game. And then something to note too, shields, if you don't know how shields work in Pathfinder 2, they don't provide a static bonus to AC. They actually have to be raised as one of your 3 actions on your turn. This causes some confusion to new players, which is why I added it here. A lot of people have the inclination that because you have to spend one of your 3 actions each turn to hold your shield up, that it's bad. But that could not be further from the truth. Shields are really, really strong, and they really increase your survivability depending on the character. So the fighter I'm going to make today is going to have a shield, and being able to raise that shield to get +2 AC for the whole round is going to make you so much tankier, so much more survivable. Okay, so what we're going to do, we can see our armor class is 19 because we have, sorry, up here for our strength, we actually have plus, oh, I haven't done ability scores yet. Let's do those. So now we're finally going to do ability scores. I want to fill out this split mail. My split mail has a dex cap of 1 and an item bonus of 5. So I actually need to get 1 dexterity to be able to fill that out. We talked before about how this Shuni ability score doesn't, or gets rid of Constitution, and I don't want that. I don't need this Charisma, but I want this Constitution as this frontline tanky fighter. So I'm going to hit the standard ability selection, and I'm going to select Strength and Constitution as kind of my 2 main stats. Notice there's 4 rows here, and you want each row to have strength in it. So here's strength, here's strength, here's strength, and then my last row down here, I get to select up to 4 different abilities. So I'm going to make sure that strength is at a +4 total. Every category, every row has to have strength in it. And that's because strength is my key ability score and my most important thing as my character. It's going to affect my accuracy and my damage in melee, which as a fighter is what I want. So for my background boost, I'm going to select that wisdom because I told you before I wanted that wisdom. Class boost is strength. Fighters can also choose dexterity. I can be a dexterity-based fighter and change my key ability score to dexterity instead of strength, but I'm going to make this a strength-based fighter. And then my last 4 skills, I of course want strength to max out. Then I'm going to get con to 2. I'm going to get dex to 1 so I can max out my split mail armor. And then I'm going to get wisdom to 2 because those will saves, perception checks, sense motive, it's all really good. I love wisdom in this game. But intelligence would be a valid choice if I wanted an extra skill proficiency or to be a little bit smarter. There's like a recall knowledge fighter feat, I think it's called combat assessment, that can be really good. So there's definitely an intelligence-based fighter build. And then also charisma. Actually, the most recent character I built was a charisma fighter who used intimidation in combat a lot. Super strong, so I would probably get a couple more points in charisma if I was doing that build again. But here we're going to go wisdom, because wisdom is just a great stat to put extra points into if you're not sure what to put points into. Now we'll see we have 19 AC from our maxed out armor. Now, following this list down, we have skill trainings, class skills, some other stuff going on. For your ancestry, the next thing to do is select a heritage. Now, there's different types of heritages. I'm not going to go into all of the specifics, but the Shuni has these 4 options: the Bloodhound Shuni, the Fish Seeker Shuni, the Paddler Shuni, and the Thick Coat Shuni. And all of these have a lot of really good flavor, and they add a lot of sort of different breeds to each ancestry, I guess, in a way. I guess I use the word breed because these are Shunis. But the Bloodhound Shuni, for example, has a great sense of smell, so they gain this imprecise scent ability where they can kind of sniff people out within 30 feet. Within 30 feet and find them. So we'll go ahead and grab that because imprecise scent, that's pretty good. Especially since we're raising our wisdom, we'll have higher perception checks, so we'll be able to make use of that sniff ability a little bit better. So that's your heritage. Then at level 1, you also get an ancestry feat. We can only select from feats that have level 1 on them as well. You'll notice some of them have this blue symbol. That means they're rare. And we selected adventure path content to be available. And if I click on this blue rare feat, you'll see that it says AP199. That means that this is something very specific from a specific adventure path, and we aren't going to want to select it really because it's probably pretty niche. So we're just going to ignore that. When you see that rare tag like that, usually just ignore it. So you can look through your ancestry feats. When I'm choosing an ancestry, I often like to look through the first like level 1 feats, level 5 feats to see if there's something that sticks out to me that makes me really like an ancestry. So like dig quickly sounds kind of funny, some kind of dog focused feat. You're standing under, your hands work effectively as shovels as you dig a quick hole. So it gives you more opportunities to dig. So there's a lot of fun thematic feats for ancestries. So it's good to look through those ahead of time while you're choosing an ancestry. Um, the lore ancestry for most ancestries is really strong. It usually gives you a couple of extra skill proficiencies, and I love skill proficiencies. I love to be good at a lot of things, or at least decent at a lot of things. So this lore skill gives you diplomacy and survival trained, and then if you were already trained in one of those, you get a new skill of your choice to get. So I'm going to take this. I like the lore, but there's a lot of great feats on a lot of characters. And when I select that, I don't have to worry about trying to manually remember that I need to take those skill proficiencies. It puts these new bubbles here that when I click on them, this one's like, okay, you have to be trained in diplomacy, and this one or one of them says you have to be trained in something else. So I'm going to select my skill training now. You can see here these numbers tell me how many skills I have left to choose. So between the rest of these, I have 5 bonus skills. Your class skill comes from fighter. If you go back to my fighter class, you can see that it says your skills are trained in your choice of acrobatics or athletics, and then 3 plus your int mod, more skills. So that's what these numbers come from. Class skill, I'm going to go athletics because this is a strength-based character, so he's a lot better at athletics than acrobatics. Athletics will let him do like combat maneuvers, climb, and swim. Skill training, then I'm going to choose more skills. Now, back to my guide here. When you're choosing skills, it's a good idea to try to cover the skills that your ability scores also cover. So as a strength character, I definitely want athletics because that means that I'm going to be the best in the party at pushing open doors or forcing open windows or grappling or tripping somebody. It makes more sense for me to grab athletics proficiency than for the wizard who won't have high strength like I do. Um, and then when you're picking extra skills, I like to pick the ones that are going to have a higher bonus as well, because I like to succeed. Success is good. You don't have to. You can be trained in other things. Like if I really want to be, like my Shuni's trained in diplomacy. I have 0 charisma. But because I'm trained in diplomacy, I can still at least handle a conversation some of the time, right? I'm not going to be as smooth talking as the bard or the sorcerer, but I'm trained, so I can hold a conversation and not piss somebody off. But when I select these extra skills, I'm going to choose skills that are very widely useful and that I have a bonus in. So, for example, medicine. Medicine is the best skill in the game. You definitely want to pick medicine as much as you can. If you have any character with any amount of wisdom, grab medicine, be a support healer. The more the merrier. There's nothing else that my fighter needs to do in between combats, so he can pull out a healer's kit and he can heal. To do that also, just as a side note, you're going to want to go to the gear tab, add gear, and then you can search for items. I'm not going to go through items. There's lots of guides out there about what items to buy, but you can always start with an adventurers pack, your weapon, your armor, and that's generally good. If you're going to be healing or thieving, stealing from people, you're going to want healer's tools or a thieves tools. So the healer's toolkit is what I want. It normally costs 5 gold, so I actually don't have enough to buy it with my splint mail, so I'd probably end up having to go medium armor at level 1 so I could grab my healer's toolkit. But right now I'm going to press this give button to just give it to myself for free. It shows up here, and that's going to allow me to use medicine checks, which there's rules for that you can look up if you search Pathfinder 2e medicine. So we have our medicine. We're going to go back to our skills and select a couple more. I'm going to choose nature. I want to know about what's going on in my environment. So I'm going to choose stealth. It's good to be stealthy. And then I get an extra skill from something. And I'm going to say that I'm knowledgeable at religion. Or if I wanted to, sometimes a good third action in combat is to do intimidation. So I could grab intimidation and try to spook people as an action in combat. But I think I'll go religion on this character. Be very knowledgeable. Now, at level 1, martial characters usually get a class feat. Normally, casters don't, because casters get spells at level 1. So I would look through my class feats. You can obviously click on them, read them all, figure out what they do. For my shield fighter here, I'm going to grab reactive shield, which lets me raise my shield as a reaction instead of as an action if I get attacked. So That's a pretty good shield feat for a shield fighter. And then if I wanted to conduct that's it. I have my level 1 character is done. You can see here it's all summarized. I have my trained proficiencies and my skills. I might want to add a weapon. There's a couple more things to do, like add weapons and gear, but as far as class features and building the class and the character, that's all done. We're level 1 now. If I wanted to continue, you scroll down and it tells you everything you need to do at each level to continue to build the character. I'm going to name this guy Ricky the Bloodhound. Since he is a Bloodhound Shoonie. We can see our hit points, our saving throw defenses, and our weapon. If I add a weapon here, let's say we're going to go with longsword. We'll go with the classic. There's a place where you can type it, but I'll just find it. Give ourselves a longsword. It'll tell you what your hit bonus is, what your damage is with it. You can see that a longsword has a 1d8 hit die, and then I get +4 slashing damage, or +4 from strength. So 1d8 +4 slashing damage. And that's all in here. So there's my level 1 character. Now, as you go on, there's a couple things that I put in the guide: skill feats and skill increases. So a skill increase is when you bump up your proficiency level in a skill. So skills start at untrained. You have no bonus to those skills, just whatever your modifier is. So for example, my acrobatics is a +1. It's untrained, that's what that U means, and it's +1 because it's based off of dexterity, which I have a +1 dexterity. Now, you get trained. When you become trained in a skill, it starts scaling off of your class, off of your character level. So when you're trained in a skill, you get 2 plus your class, or sorry, 2 plus your level in that skill as a bonus. So looking at athletics, we know athletics scales off strength. So that gives it a +4 because I have +4 on my strength score. And then there's an extra 3 coming from somewhere, and that 3 is because I'm trained. 2 from the trained proficiency plus my level, which is currently 1. You can see if I bump up my level to 2, anything that I'm trained in is going to go up by 1. So if I'm level 2, now my athletics is 8. And all of the ones that had the orange letter next to it went up by 1 because my level went up by 1 and I was trained at trained proficiency. Anything that's expert gives you 4 plus level, master 6 plus level, and legendary 8 plus level. So you get an additional 2 whenever you bump up your proficiency. And there are restrictions on this. I can't raise anything to master or any skills to master proficiency until I'm level 7, and you can't do legendary until you're level 15. So there's like level caps on how quickly you can increase your skills. You unlock your first skill increase at level 3, and then every 2 levels thereafter. So at level 3, I'm going to say, once I hit level 3, I've been grappling a lot of people in combat or tripping people in combat, so I'm going to increase my athletic skills so that I can be a lot better at that specifically. You just click that. Now it's E for expert. You click finished, and at level 3, it's going to go up. That isn't displaying here because I haven't changed my level to 3, but if I change my level to 3, you'll see now I have expert in athletics, and it's +11 now. Because I have 4 plus my level in athletics. So you get those at every odd level besides level 1. You'll notice that after I do that, if I click skill increase at level 5 and I try to select athletics, it doesn't do anything because I can't go to master at level 5. At level 7, this skill increase, now I can change my athletics to master if I want to do that. So that's how skill increases work. And then you'll notice that every even level, 2, 4, 6, 8, etc., I get a skill feat. Now, skill feats can be very intimidating, but it's really not that big of a deal. So what skill feats are is they're like extra abilities that usually involve or are related to that specific skill. So, for example, Bon Mot. This is a really fun ability for a charisma-based character, or a character with really good diplomacy. So what Bon Mot is as a single action, that's what that diamond symbol means, I can launch equip at a foe to distract them. And if I succeed at this, I can give them a -2 penalty to their perception checks and their will saves for a whole minute. Your casters will love this. If you're playing a character with charisma, like a swashbuckler or maybe a rogue with high charisma, and you want to help out your casters, your party members, grab Bon Mot, use that every once in a while on somebody that you know they're going to want to target with their will save spells, and they're gonna love you for that. So really cool skill feat. Battle medicine, awesome for a healer. Wouldn't it be too bad on my fighter because I got my trained proficiency and a +2 bonus on my wisdom. So I'm actually going to grab battle medicine. We're going to say this fighter can run around and pull out its healer's tools and patch somebody up or give them like an adrenaline shot or something in combat. So that skill feat will let me do that. To select this skill feat, I have to have a prerequisite of being trained in medicine. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Um, then the thing I love about Pathbuilder is it's not going to let you select things that you don't have access to, or at least it puts them at the bottom. So you can see all of these things I have access to. Down here, there's a bunch of grayed out feats that I don't have access to because I don't meet the requirements. So for example, Catfall, if I click on it, prerequisites, trained in acrobatics. Our character is untrained in acrobatics, so I don't have access to those skill feats that require me to be trained in acrobatics. Now, as you level up and you have to start thinking about what skill feats you want later, something I like to do is say, well, what skill am I going to be focusing on? Most characters are going to have like 2, maybe 3 skills that they are the best at, that they excel at, that they carry the party at. So we said that this Shuni is going to be amazing at athletics. He's going to be good at tripping people, grappling people. So if I want him to unlock even further features with that, I'm going to go to Google. I'm going to type PF2E athletics feats. Click the first link as usual, and this is going to show you an awesome list of all of the skill feats that are specific to the athletics skill. You can see that a lot of them have prerequisites of a specific proficiency level. The first few are trained in athletics, but then it becomes expert. So if I want to take lead climber, which lets me guide my fellow allies up a cliff or something, I have to be an expert in athletics if I want to take that. Powerful leap, awesome athletics feat, lets you jump farther when you're high jumping or long jumping. Have to be an expert to take that. So I won't be able to take that until level 3, most likely, when I become an expert in athletics. And then the last major thing is general feats. Now, general feats are less common than other things. You get one at level 3, level 7, level 11. Humans can get them at level 1 with one of the human heritages, which is sometimes nice depending on your build. And general feats are really good. And what's nice about the slot too is that if you have a lot of skill feats, maybe you're trying to do a lot of things, medicine, maybe you're trying to do like fainting in combat or demoralizing, and you need a couple of extra feats to help you with that, you can use a general feat to get another skill feat. But there are specific general feats that can only be taken at levels 3, 7, 11, etc. So you don't get that many. General feats can be kind of boring sometimes. So, for example, some characters need armor proficiency. Maybe you don't want to take mage armor, but you don't want to be squishy as a caster. So, boom, you take armor proficiency as a general feat, and now you can wear light armor to get an extra AC. But there's a couple of standout good ones that a lot of people pick, and like if you don't want to think too hard about what to do for your general feat, here's a couple of good ones to choose. Toughness gives you an extra 1 HP per level, and helps you with your death saving throws, which are called recovery checks. But increasing your max HP is great, especially on a squishy character. Toughness is really nice. Incredible initiative, acting with a +2 bonus to all initiative rolls, really useful. Fleet is an amazing general feat that's super useful. Increasing your speed by 5 feet can be huge because if you're trying to move around the battlefield in combat and if you're 5 feet faster than someone else, moving away from them makes them have to spend 2 actions to catch up to you if they want to attack you again. So having an extra 5 movement speed over your enemies can be very, very beneficial. It's also great for like a heavy armor character like ours, because heavy armor, if we go back to the armors, you'll notice that there is a speed penalty. The heavy armors all have a -10-foot speed penalty. Now, there's a rule that when you meet the strength requirement of your armor, you can ignore 5 feet of a speed penalty. So if I meet the +2 strength requirement for this medium wooden breastplate, this minus 5 foot speed penalty goes down to 0, and I don't have a speed penalty. But since all heavy armor has this +10 penalty on it, or minus 10 penalty, you reduce it by 5, you're still going to have a 5 foot speed penalty. So you'll have so our Shuni, for example, we can see up here his speed, it says 20 feet because it's accounting for his armor. If I were to stow my armor, takes it off, we'll see now my AC's gone down to 14, but my speed is 25. So the base speed of most ancestries is going to be 25. So when I put on my heavy armor, it's going to reduce that. If I go back to my splint mail, I should be able to restore it back to my defense tab. So now I'm wearing my armor again, my speed is 20 feet. But if I take the fleet general feat, which I love to do on heavy armor characters at level 3, grab fleet, accept, and I change myself to level 3, you'll now see my speed bumps up to 25. And if I were to stow my heavy armor, now my speed is 30. So fleet is an awesome general feat as well. So those are kind of like the core general feats. Your toughness for your HP and your recovery checks, fleet for the extra speed, incredible initiative for the +2 bonus, um, armor proficiency for some characters. A lot of people like die hard. It makes it harder for you to die. Toughness kind of does the same thing. But you can also stack them for extra bonuses. And then another really good one is untrained improvisation. Specifically, once it hits level 7, or once you hit level 7, it lets you add your level to all of your skill checks, even when you're untrained. So you're basically trained -2 on everything that you're not trained in, which can be nice. Some people like that. Ancestral Paragon's another good one. It lets you add a first level ancestry feat, an extra one, which can be fun. And then you can also grab things like proficiencies, like weapon proficiency, things to help you with some battle medicine checks or whatever. But those are the general feats, or you can grab any skill feat as well as an extra skill feat instead of a general feat. And that's my whole guide. That got a little bit further than I wanted to, but I hope this was helpful to you. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments or ask me on the Reddit post for this guide. Hope you have a great campaign and that you have an awesome first character. This is an amazing community, so when you have questions, just reach out on the Pathfinder 2e official Discord or Reddit or whatever. Well, have a good night.